hope we could connect in whatever way we could possibly connect today. It is the month of Cheiros, the month of freedom. And it's interesting because although all of us sitting here together today are free, none of us are in bondage. We're not in prison. We're able to go wherever we want and do whatever we want to do. But yet we really still sometimes feel as if we are trapped. We do kind of feel as if we're living in a certain, with certain chains or a certain type of slavery. And we're not really able to experience that true level of freedom. And the thing is that Mitzrayim is not just a physical state. When the Jews were in Mitzrayim, they weren't just in a land that was called Mitzrayim. It was a certain mental state that they were living in. They were living in a state of victimhood. They were living because they were victims, right? It was legitimate, but they were living in that state of narrowness. You know what the shorish of the word Mitzrayim is? Metzer. That means narrow. You all know the song Kol HaOlam Kulo. Gesher Tzar Me'od. What's a gesher? We all do the hand movements. Gesher Tzar Me'od. Tzar means narrow, right? A very narrow bridge. That is what Mitzrayim was. The mental state of living in Mitzrayim was they lived in narrowness. The Gemara terminology for this is hatnos demuchen, which is a retracted consciousness. They lived in a state where they only looked around and saw the here and now, the little details of this moment of living, which makes it very, very difficult. When you can't have a broadened understanding, when you don't live with expanded consciousness, that is what leads a person into depression. It leads a person into sadness. It leads a person into self-doubt. And it makes it very difficult to get out of that state of victimhood. And that's the state we live in sometimes, this state of retracted consciousness in our minds. And that is what keeps us enslaved. When we live in a narrow mindset, we live with retracted consciousness. Nisan, the month of Nisan, and the Yom Tov of Pesach is all about opening up our narrow view of life and living with expanded consciousness, because true slavery is in our minds, even though we might not be physical slaves in Egypt. And those become our limitations for life. Every day we wake up and we have a choice to make. Am I going to look at the small narrowness of my issues that I'm struggling with right now, of the difficulty of my day, of the little things that are going wrong? Or am I going to look at life with expanded consciousness and focus on the things that are actually going right, and focus on the things that are in my control rather than focusing on the things that are not in my control? Because that leaves us in this state of mental enslavement, self-doubt, fears, anxiety, or any midos that make it difficult for us to break through of those limitations, to transcend those limitations and into our personal freedom. There was a group of people that lived in Mitzrayim in that mindset of retracted consciousness that were actually able to break free of that. They were able to break free, and because of that, we were worthy of leaving Mitzrayim. Listen to that, because they broke free of the mental slavery and the psychological slavery and the emotional slavery. They were able to break free of the physical slavery and enter into spiritual freedom, which happened eventually with the receiving of the Torah at Shavuos. Right? That was our ultimate spiritual freedom. Who was that group of people? That was us, you, me, our sisters, our mothers, our grandmothers. It was the women of Mitzrayim. And this is why we're taught B'schos Nashim Tzidkanios. How were they able? What did they do that was worthy, that made the entire Jewish nation worthy of leaving Mitzrayim? What does it mean that they broke free of that retracted consciousness, right? That narrowness of the mind? And before we get into that, I just want to explain why this is even more impressive, because women are actually more prone to katnos demuchen, to this retracted consciousness, than men are. You know why? Because of the way we live our lives, because of our routines that we have. Routine very often leads a person into that state of down. We have the same routines every day. Anyone who's married or anyone who has children, and Be'ezrat Hashem, whoever is not, will one day. And it, of course, it comes with so much bracha and so much beauty, but it's difficult emotional work. It's the same thing day in and day out. And how many times do you clean the kitchen? And an hour later, it's messy again. And then you clean it again, and an hour later, it's messy again, right? You clean up after breakfast, then you got to make lunch. You clean up after lunch, you got to make dinner. You clean up after dinner, somebody else wants a snack. Like, it's never just clean. Anyone here who has little children, has toddlers, how long are they clean for? I was just at my sister's house in Eretz Yisrael, and her baby took a bath, and I was like, I love freshly baked babies. And I'm like squeezing her baby. And she was like, yeah, enjoy it while it lasts, right? 20 minutes and the kid is not freshly clean anymore, right? It's like this never ending work that women do We don't have a plaque on the wall. Kid was washed today. Dinner was made today. Go you. No, that doesn't happen. So it sometimes feels like there's no end in sight, and it's so thankless. And this is what leads women very often into this retracted consciousness, this narrowness of our mind, where we view life in such a narrow way, and it leads to so much negativity and so much resentment and really this emotional and psychological enslavement that we end up in. So these women of Mitzrayim broke out of that mindset, and they gave us the superpower of gadlos demuchen, of expanded consciousness. These women taught us about true emunah and about true Torah manifestation. And if we put those two concepts together, because they do go together, emunah and Torah manifestation, we get emunah-festation. And that's what these women taught us. That's our superpower, emunah-festation. What happened? When they left Mitzrayim, we know that the women took their tambourines with them. And they prepared for this drum circle to happen after they really experienced their freedom. How did they manage to take their tambourines? I mean, if you think about it, really, like, chas v'shalom, you have to leave your house in emergency. What are you going to grab? Are you going to go run and grab your guitars, your drums, what? Of course not. Why? How did that make sense that they had to leave? B'chipazon, instantaneously, immediately. 1 minute, let me go get my tambourine. And by the way, I was writing this concept yesterday to somebody to give some chizuk, and I was writing this whole idea of the women went to get their tambourines, and my phone kept autocorrecting it. Every time I wrote tambourine, it autocorrected it to trampoline. And I was like, you know how much fun that would have been? Imagine we would have all taken our trampolines and just jump up and down. You know why? But it was such a great autocorrect, because that's what happened. They grabbed their tambourines. They knew not only were we going to be freed, but we were going to have an after party. They knew. So what did they do? It wasn't that they had to start running around their house to look for their tambourines. They left their tambourines at the door way before they knew that they were going to be set free. They left it at the door because they said, we're going to be set free and we are going to have an epic after party. We need those tambourines and we need those trampolines, because that's exactly what it was. It was like you bounce down, you bounce up, you bounce down, you bounce up. I'm just loving this autocorrect. So this is the power of our mothers and grandmothers in Mitzrayim, this emunah-festation. And we learned two things from what these women did, how they were able to move from retracted consciousness into expanded consciousness. The first thing is this level of emunah, of saying, I know we're going to be liberated. I know the world will carry on. I know there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. I know I'm going to put my tambourine at the door. And this is lesson number one. When there is a Yeshua that you want, and there is a Yeshua that you need, go put your tambourine at the door. Leave it at the door. Prepare yourself for it. Make sure that you are 100% aware of what you need to do in order for it to happen, because that is step number two. Step number two was this Torah concept of manifestation. We live in a society where manifestation is a super big buzzword today, right? Everyone's all about manifesting, but manifesting is not in the way that our society teaches it to us, which is all about energies. It's like this passive movement of energy. If you sit and you imagine it and you fantasize about it, you will bring that which you are seeking, that which you are desiring, you will bring it to you by putting the energy forth. That's not Torah manifestation. Manifestation is not passive. It's not about sitting there and waiting for something to happen. Step one is emunah, knowing that Hashem can make this happen. Step two is being active about it and taking those positive steps to do it. Don't just say, I know Hashem will set us free. Say, no, I'm going to put my tambourine at the door. I'm going to make sure that I'm ready for this to happen. I'm going to do what I need to do. They lived in that state of expanded consciousness. They were so focused on the positive. They weren't focused on the difficulty of what was going on in Mitzrayim. They were focused on, yeah, but That's going to be over soon because soon we're going to be freed. They had this deep, deep level of emunah, and they taught us how to manifest according to the Torah. And you know what that means? They taught us that we create our reality. Oh my goodness. How mind-blowing is that? We create our reality. Now, this does not mean that we make absolute decisions about what will happen in our lives. That's Hashem's job. And there are certain circumstances in our lives that we have absolutely no control over. But we do know that we have control over so many things within those circumstances. We have control over our responses. We have control over our reactions. We have control over our quality of life, because the circumstances in our lives don't control our quality of life. Our perspective controls our quality of life. And we could actually make things happen for us when we start living in that direction, when we start changing that mindset and developing a perspective. So we're going to finish up quickly, but I just want to explain this concept a tiny bit further, because David HaMelech teaches us in Tehillim. You may know these words, Ha'amanti ki adaber. What does that mean? Ha'amanti ki adaber. Now, David HaMelech is teaching this to us in terms of emunah and bitachon. And he's saying, Ha'amanti, I believe, ki adaber, because I speak it. This is so powerful. He's teaching us that whatever we speak, whatever we say, that's what we believe. And he's saying, if you continuously talk about Hashem, which is, by the way, why we say Shema 3 times a day, you would think, oh, why do I need to say Shema three times a day, really? I say it once in the morning. I'm going to forget by the time the evening comes. It's almost like an insult to my intellect. Wait, what do you mean I'm about to say it again? I said Shema today. No, because it's not about the intellect. We know intellectually, but the longest road in life is the road from the head to the heart. We don't always integrate into our hearts what we know in our heads. And this is why we also say in davening, V'yadata hayom v'hashevosa el levavecha. V'yadata hayom, I know you know. But v'hashevosa el levavecha, now you got to bring it into your heart. That's what emunah is. That's what they were teaching us. We know intellectually, we got to bring it into our hearts. Ha'amanti ki adaber, I believe it because I speak it and I say it over again. Hashem becomes part of my vernacular. We speak about Hashem. We speak about the brachos in our lives and the miracles that we experience on a day-to-day basis. And this not only refers to emunah, but this is a very important point for us to understand. Ha'amanti ki adaber. I believe it because I speak it. Whatever you speak about, that's what you start believing. If you talk about what a victim you are, you will start believing that you're a victim, and you're going to live your life as a victim. And when you're a victim, there's never true happiness. There's never inner peace. There's never growth. There's never contentment, because you're always a victim of life. Life is out to get you. Life is your enemy. And if we live as a victim and we focus on the things that are going wrong, that's what we're going to notice. And that's what other people are going to notice. If you speak about things negatively about yourself to yourself, what are the things you tell yourself about yourself every day? Amanti ki adaber. Do you tell yourself how unequipped you are, how inept you are, how useless you are, how worthless you are? Or do you tell yourself how valuable you are, how beautiful, how wonderful you are, how much the world needs you? What do you tell yourself? Well, if those of you who are married, what do you tell your husbands? Do you tell your husbands, oh, I'm so fat, I'm so ugly, Why? Is that what you want him to believe about you? You tell him how awesome you are. You tell him how gorgeous you are. That's what he's going to believe about you. Ha'amanti ki adaber. Whatever we speak, that's what we believe, and that's what everybody else believes. So we have that superpower of expanded consciousness. I'm going to end with one cool thing that I just want you to know. We're all familiar with the famous words, abracadabra. Now, here's the thing. Manifestation is not magic. We don't just sit there and say, I want it to happen. It's going to happen. No. You know what abracadabra actually stands for? Abracadabra, the words come from Aramaic, and it's a Jewish concept, actually, abracadabra. Abracadabra means abra, I create, kedabra, as I speak. I create as I speak. I create my reality. The things I speak about, those are the things I create for myself. So if we get up and we say, today will be my liberation. Today I will take my metaphoric tambourines, or my trampolines. Depends how high we're going to jump today. And I'm going to put them at my door. And I am going to know that I create the reality that I experience for myself and for the people around me. And that's the power of Chodesh Nisan. Let's tap into that power. Let's make a decision that this month, Be'ezus Hashem, we are going to focus on what's going right. We're not going to focus on what's going wrong. We're going to focus on the things that are in my control. We're not going to focus on the things that are not in my control. And we're going to live with expanded consciousness. We're going to be careful with the things we say, the things we tell ourselves about ourselves, the things we tell ourselves about other people, the things we tell other people about other people, the things that other people about ourselves. Because abracadabra, I create what I speak. And we're going to create expanded consciousness, and we're going to create emunah through our emunah manifestation.